Hello, it's Collette from the Sacred Rose Temple, and I am here to give you this week's energy forecast. So, we've moved last week from the musings that I shared in the forecast to this week, which is going to just accelerate some of them themes a little more. But I'm quite excited to share today's energy forecast because it's something I've seen working quite heavily in the collective with my clients, with people around me, and specifically with my own self. So I've got a lot to say about what's happening this week and what you might be finding going on with you. Maybe you've made it conscious, maybe not. Maybe it's time for you to recognize what's been happening in the outer world. So I hope this sheds some light on what might be going on for you. But we've just gone through what was 2.5 years with Mars in retrograde, and Mars, the planet, is going to go direct in 7 days. It's meant that it's had quite a deep impact on us all over the last 2.5 years. What it's been trying to do is play with our inner feminine and masculine energies. Now, this makes a lot of sense to me as someone who's been doing the Jungian work over the last, 5 years, and everything comes down after we've gone through intense shadow work to the feminine and masculine integration. And it feels like I might be in this for a very long time. So the planet's been helping us, and maybe that's why I dove into that at this point. So, what does it mean for you? Well, it's meant that the retrograde has been trying to do a deep recalibration of your whole entire energy system, your body, your mind, your soul. And it's been bringing about, the need for you to take a different action, for you to feel a desire, and for you to feel the polarities of life, to feel the inner masculine and the feminine, to understand that there's shadow and there's light. We're no longer living in this kind of mono understanding of the world. It is a dualistic world we live in. We're in polarity and we're trying to go to oneness. Fundamentally, we begin at oneness, but the whole journey of life is to understand the opposites, the parallels, the duality, so that we can integrate these within us, and that then becomes a force outside of us. So it's a complex matter, but quite simply, it means recognizing how these opposites show up in you. Now, Mars energies are really kind of masculine force. And because it's been going direct, there's been more focus on the feminine. And we've seen that in our climate with the movements, with the more kind of feminine scope. This morning, I was deeply emotional of a sharing of a woman that's dedicated her life into helping women understand the threat they're under as women and arming them with guidance for being alone and for self-defense. And this made me really, really sad, like really emotional over the fact that the feminine is so attacked. Still, women still can't go out running without fear of being raped, attacked, hassled. I had a similar experience this week where I had a masculine attack on my Facebook, and it seems that wherever women rise, there's this deeper masculine energy that wants to attack or take down or rape and pillage. It's not changed. And I'm not blaming men. That's not where I want to go with this at all. But I want to talk about the feminine and masculine drives, because somebody in a male body still has the feminine and masculine within them. And the wounded masculine is that masculine that attacks, that comes in and tries to bring women down. And we hold that in us as women as well. So this isn't about sex, but rather about the principles of energies within us. And this is something that I love to teach on. Like, my whole mystery school is based on the feminine mysteries. And I've been on a soul spirit journey over the last, nearly 30 years, trying to find myself as a woman and do the spiritual integration for that. So this energy for you is going to ask you to look at those inner feminine and masculine energies. This has come up in many of my reports, and many of you are doing that. And some of you still have resistance to look at those inner and outer polarities that are around you. What does the feminine in you look like? What does it look outside of you? What does the masculine look like outside of you? Then what does it look inside of you? All of it is a reflection. If it's outside, it's happening on the inside. So this transit that we've been in has been asking for the feminine energy inside of us to surrender, to things slow down a little bit, making us a little bit softer and a little bit deeper inside. And that might have come through quite painful experiences, or it might not. It might have been through loving experiences. We felt a lot of emotional surges. We've had a lot of anger, a lot of frustration. There's been a lot of grief rising as old wounds with the masculine has come up for us. So this might be in relationship dynamics, work dynamics, stuff with your mother, with your father, sorry. So yeah, the emotional surges from that have been happening. And then what else it's been doing? It's really trying to be work on desire, your sexual desire, your desire for life, what drives you, why are you here? What are you doing? So men are driven, the masculine energies are more driven by other things, motivation, but the feminine energy is driven by desire. And for the masculine energy, this retrograde has brought a halt in forward motion. It's asked us to look at old patterns of pursuit, how we feel protected or not protected, or control issues. It's been a reckoning with our masculine past. Has masculine energy in us been misused, outside of us been misused upon us? Is it disconnected in you as a woman, or is it unaligned? And it's been about the chance to be more conscious about the masculine energy within us, less force, more intentional. So the Mars retrograde that's been happening has, been exposing our imbalances between the inner masculine and feminine and the external masculine and feminine. So we'll have seen that. Think about how this has affected you in your life. Relationship with your friends, relationship with your partners, with your family. What's been showing itself there? The inner feminine has been suppressed. And you may feel disconnected from your intuitive feeling in nature. The world shows us that the inner feminine has been disconnected from in men and women. And the transit that we're about to go in as Mars goes back into forward motion is that there might be a deep, deep sense of longing for love. And this transit will be bringing up past wounds, false versions of masculine energy that you've been hooked into, perhaps men who lacked integrity, direction, or depth, and you holding out for the real thing. Now, that could be in your current relationship. This is not just about single women. It could be in a relationship that it lacks integrity, direction, and depth. And that means that you both have to do some work together there to bring that in. If it's about attracting a new relationship, then you're really coming from a new foundation of that you want integrity, you want direction, you want the masculine energy to lead, you want the feminine energy to be more submissive and intuitive and nurturing and compassion. And the interplay of those energies within you should really help you navigate them outside of you. So men and women need to look at this. Working with this energy is going to be profound as we move into the Mars going direct. And what you'll want to look at for the feminine, we're going to be looking at desire, slow burning desire, building desire without rushing to the final thing. We know where that takes place in our bedroom. Can you apply that desire, that wishing to rush to the outcome, to be replaced by a slow burn, building to an outcome, allowing desire to fuel you every day, not erupt and be over, and then back to daily life, but for desire to be a build? We need to also be looking at our emotions fully. What rage do we hold? What anger do we have? What grief do we have? What longing lives inside of us? And we shouldn't ignore that at all, because the rage, the grief, the longing within us is really important. And I've been seeing men going through this quite deeply, actually. Men have the right to long. Men really have this right to have this softer space inside of them that is seeking for the same depth, integrity, and direction. Like it is part of our interweaving with our mate that we find someone that we are in integrity with, that we find direction together, and that we go deep together. That's going to be the new collective relating as we step forward. Gone are them old patterns. You know, I look back at my old patterns now, even from last year, and I'm like, oh my goodness, how did I not see those patterns? Why was I in them and playing in them? And so I'm grateful for all this beautiful astrological, spiritual God energy. You know, God is in charge of the astrology to support us and to help us see our way through this magnificent, mystical, you know, it's like a cryptic game, isn't it, of life to discover yourself on a deep level and to align with God's will. So the feminine energy is being activated in you to reclaim our standards. The feminine energy has to reclaim standards. So whether you're a man or a woman, the feminine energy in you asks you to reclaim standards. Don't chase for things, magnetize them. Hold the very essence of what you want and wish for within inside of yourself. If you have not been getting what you wanted, it is because inside of you, you have not held it. So where do you need to do work here? That would really lead you into some really deep soul work as you move forward. Looking and reflecting at masculine energy within us, we need to become into a reflective state instead of a reactive state. Oh dear, this is hard, isn't it? Especially for a fiery Taurian like me. But where do we act from impulse rather than depth? That needs to be changed. How can we go deeper under the reaction of the emotion or the wound or the trigger and come into a more deep place? We might see that playing out in relationships with people, that there's been a trigger. If we were conscious enough to recognize the trigger, then we can enter into a new space of depth under that and say, okay, what's triggering us here? And how do we talk about it? We're also being asked in this masculine energy to strengthen integrity, to be really, you know, practice what we preach, walk our talk, making sure that we're not just bigging ourselves up and saying, I'm this and I'm that, because we can say what we like, but we only disappoint people when we're talking a good game, but we're not playing it. So I hear people all the time say, yeah, I'm this and I'm that. And then the actions just don't match up. And that is a lack of self alignment, a lack of self integrity. Knowing that your actions actually align with what you're talking about and that it has a deeper purpose. Masculine energy is also being asked to hold space for itself. And I often think about this in my own masculine energy, which finds it difficult to hold space for self, but often for others and emotions, and also for the masculine energy to integrate feminine wisdom. If the feminine is imparting deep wisdom, listen, embody. Don't be in that masculine energy of just let me speak after you and I'm not really going to listen to what you're saying. It's very masculine energy. So the reset is how we embody and receive the masculine. It's asking us to soften where we've been too hard and to strengthen where we've been too passive. It's really about looking at how we change ourselves. What's been working for us before isn't necessarily going to work in our favor as we move forward. So it's time to do some deep work in understanding what hasn't been working and how could you change behaviors if you've been passive. I pulled somebody up the other day for saying, I can't, probably, maybe. All those words need to be eliminated from that vocabulary for that person to move forward. That person needs to understand that there's more solidity in different words. also working with others just to reclaim parts of themselves that they've denied and lost and hidden because of fear of what that looks like when they say certain things out loud. I want to be loved. I want children. I want to be married. What that feels like to actually reclaim a want. So, yeah, in 7 days, during this week, we're going to feel the build up of the momentum of Mars going direct. And we're going to all be in a kind of new level of awareness. To the degree depends on how much time you've spent doing this and are being aware of this right now. It's like the energy of action, pursuit, and drive has been reworked in the underworld, and it's now emerging with a deeper clarity and such a more, how would I like to frame this? Graceful and refined power. And I want to replace the word power because where there's no power, there's no love. But a refined love, a refined want of living in more love. So yeah, it's a deep time to anchor in our magnetism, to allow a divine flow, to move stuck energy, especially emotional, energy, to be aligned, our words and actions, to just do some self-reflection on how our energies have worked in the past, to pull back any blame for anybody. And to pull it back to ourselves, because this is a huge power shift as Mars goes direct. It's driving us forward. It's asking us to align with our truth and our deepest wants and longings. The feminine energy will become more magnetic in you, and the masculine energy will become more intentional. And if you've done the deeper inner work over this period, you've not just been, as I like to say, scratching your ass and sat watching TV or, the world of sport or whatever, that you've actually been doing deep self-reflection and trying to see yourself in both shadow and light, then the world, you're going to catch up to what's happening. And this will be quite a prosperous time for you. You're going to see some things bringing in new direction for you. We've also got on the 24th, the full moon in Virgo, and that's about sacred purification and earthly integration. I'm going to speak more about this probably next week, but I just wanted you to be aware of that. It's all about healing the body, your physical needs being met. It's time to take some more self-care, to look after yourself a little better. It's a time to look at what needs to get released in your life, what needs to go, and also to realign back with your sacred time of devotion. Do you have structure for sacred time? Are you setting time aside to pray, to prayer, to meditate, to do body connection? What is it that you need to do to help your body, help yourself release and work with more of a sacred devotion? So there's the collective energies in totality are about reclamation and moving forward. Our inner spiritual warrior comes out. There is a Pisces Virgo axis, which will bring a deep dance between spiritual surrender and practical refinement. And I love that statement because I think that's the crux of my work with people, is finding that balance between what the spiritual and practical look like and how you integrate in normal everyday life, the mundane life, how you integrate the profane, how you live spiritually, how that becomes part of your normal life. And I think that's going to be a really deep movement this year. We've seen it in my own upbringing of like the church and how everybody was holier than thou in the construction of the church, but then came home and battered their wives and drank bottles of whiskey and, had affairs. And it's the same in spirituality. I'm not blaming religion, but when we're out of a vessel or a church or a body, is that still being aligned in your life? So we need to start to really think about that. Do we practice what we preach? Do we walk what we talk? Is our spiritual practice part of our daily life? Or are we still going to the temple to do it and then coming out and being moralistically out of integrity, hanging around with people that reflect our real inner belief systems. If you're around people who are sexist or racist, or it's something in you that you need to address, otherwise you wouldn't be in that vibrational frequency. So it's all about looking at yourself and bringing clarity in what needs to go and what needs to come forward. So it's a bit of a long energy forecast, but I think this is super important work, super, super important work. And I am embracing these energies because for years I've been working towards this, and now I'm totally getting held by the planet. More people are becoming aware of all of this. And I'm like, hallelujah, the world's catching up with those of us that have been doing the depth of spiritual work as a daily practice. So this is a really joyous time for me in my own spiritual journey. And I want to just end on a note about how I'm taking that forward next year. Those of you that follow my work know that I usually bring out some bodies of work for people to work in, but I'm really going to be hell bent focused on my womb alchemy container this year. I am going to be doing a 13-month container for women called Womb Alchemy, and it is all about a deep womb work integrated with the Magnus Opus, which is like the Jungian individuation process I've been on, working in those key themes like shadow, feminine and masculine integration. We're going to go into it really super deeply. You'll be doing a live Zoom with me every month. You'll be getting a sacred transmission every month. There will be sacred practices to do every month and a forum to record your experiences in every single week. So it's deeply spiritually intense. It's like returning to the temple to do the sacred work, but you get to do real life as well because it's online. You don't need to come and live with me to do it. So those women who really want to step into a deep womb container, a deep alchemical transformational process, like the deepest, then join me. I'll include the link under here. But I've already got some amazing women signing up, some women that have been with me in the past. They've showed up and said, I'm in. So this has really, made my day, and the commitment is worth it. I have an early bird discount code that I will also share underneath here for the container. And yeah, you don't need to do any other body of work while doing this. It is enough, believe me. So, really looking forward to how this week works for you. Be aware of those feminine and masculine energies within you and around you, and the movement of forward and what that is asking from you. That's God's pull, that's God's drive for you. So, listen, be aware, but most of all, stay blessed and really, really, enjoy this transformational energy that we're all under, even though it might feel intense. It's superb for your spiritual growth. Bye for now.